Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be focusing on something that's particularly relevant to your experiences on the autism spectrum.
Okay.
We've got a collection of website excerpts here, all about navigating life on the spectrum.
Right.
And there's this recurring theme that I noticed popping up, and that's flying monkeys. Now, like in The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, yeah.
But we're not talking about monkeys flying around.
Right.
We're talking about how these flying monkeys pop up in the context of narcissistic relationships.
Nick.
And I'm really curious to kind of unpack this with you today.
Yeah, it's a fascinating and often overlooked aspect of these types of relationships, and one that can have a really profound impact on autistic individuals.
Absolutely. So before we get into why that is, I think it's important to start with the basics.
Sure.
What exactly are these flying monkeys in this context?
Well, you can think of them as like agents of the narcissist.
Okay.
They're individuals who either wittingly or unwittingly carry out the narcissist's bidding to harass or undermine someone.
Oh, wow.
It's often done through pretty subtle manipulation.
Okay.
So the flying monkeys might not even realize they're being used as pawns in this game.
So it's not like they're like actively trying to be these evil henchmen.
Exactly.
They're just kind of being pulled into this web of manipulation.
Precisely. And that actually makes them even more dangerous
Oh, how so?
because their actions might seem genuine or well-intentioned on the surface.
Oh, I see.
Like if you're dealing with a flying monkey, it could be anything from them spreading rumors and gossip about you
Uh-huh.
to launching online attacks
Oh, wow.
or even undermining your work behind the scenes.
Yeah. So it can manifest in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely.
But why would a narcissist resort to using others instead of just confronting the person directly?
Well, narcissists are all about control
Right.
and maintaining a very specific image.
Okay.
Direct confrontation risks exposing their true nature and making them vulnerable.
Makes sense.
So by using these flying monkeys,
Yeah.
they get to inflict damage while still maintaining this sort of facade of innocence.
It's like they're playing a chess game,
Yes,
strategically moving these pawns around the board to get what they want.
that's a great analogy. And because they're avoiding direct confrontation,
Mm-hmm.
they also completely avoid any accountability.
Oh, that's really interesting.
The fallout lands squarely on the target,
Right.
while the narcissist remains seemingly untainted.
They come out looking like the good guy.
Exactly.
Wow, that's pretty messed up.
It is.
So how does this dynamic become especially challenging for someone on the autism spectrum?
Well, autistic individuals often face unique challenges when it comes to interpreting social cues and hidden intentions.
Okay.
They might take things at face value
Right.
and not immediately recognize when someone is being disingenuous or manipulative.
So that inherent trust and desire for genuine connection that's often associated with autism
Right.
could make them more susceptible to these tactics.
Exactly. And it's not just about being more trusting. You know, autistic individuals are often very deeply sensitive to criticism and feedback.
Right.
So when a flying monkey comes in with these subtle digs or veiled insults,
Yeah.
it can have a much greater emotional impact.
So it's like those attacks are almost amplified
Yes.
because they're experiencing them on a whole other level.
Absolutely, both socially and emotionally.
And we also have to consider the challenges with executive functioning that some autistic individuals face, right?
Exactly.
Like setting boundaries and asserting themselves in those situations can be really difficult.
Yes, definitely more difficult for some than others.
So it's almost like they're starting this race a few steps behind.
Yeah.
They're facing these complex social dynamics
Right.
while also dealing with this heightened sensitivity and potential struggles with asserting their needs.
That's a great way to put it.
And that's why I think it's crucial to really understand how to recognize these flying monkeys and develop strategies to protect yourself.
Absolutely.
So let's dive into that.
Okay.
What are some red flags that someone might be acting as a flying monkey?
Well, one of the most common signs is a really sudden shift in someone's behavior,
Okay.
especially if it seems completely out of character.
Like what? Give me an example.
Let's say you have a friend who has always been incredibly supportive,
Mm-hmm.
and suddenly they start making subtle digs at you, questioning all your decisions or even spreading rumors.
Oh, wow.
That could be a sign that they've been influenced by a narcissist.
So it's not just about like the content of what they're saying. It's
Yeah.
also about that unexpected change in their demeanor.
Exactly. It's like their whole energy towards you shifts.
Wow.
Another red flag is when someone tries to isolate you from your support system.
Okay.
They might start gossiping about other people in your life,
Uh-huh.
trying to create a wedge between you and your trusted friends or family members.
So it's like they're trying to chip away at your foundation,
Yeah.
make you feel alone and vulnerable.
Precisely. And this can be a particularly effective tactic against autistic individuals who really value loyalty and deep connections.
That makes sense, because yeah, you're right, autistic people are often very loyal.
Yes.
What about online interactions? Could flying monkeys be operating in that space as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The internet has unfortunately become kind of a breeding ground for this type of manipulation.
Really? How
It's so much easier to hide behind a screen
Yeah.
and launch these attacks without any direct confrontation.
Right. So you might see a bunch of negative comments or messages from seemingly random people
Oh.
or experience online bullying that seems orchestrated,
Yes,
but you can't quite pinpoint the source.
exactly. And this can be especially disorienting for someone on the autism spectrum who might already have difficulties navigating the nuances of online communication.
Right. It's like adding another layer of complexity to an already complex situation.
That's a great way to put it. So recognizing these red flags is really just the first step.
Oh.
But what can someone actually do to protect themselves once they realize they might be dealing with these flying monkeys?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We've identified the problem, but now
Really?
we need to explore the solutions.
Exactly. And that's what we'll dive into in the next part of our deep dive.
Perfect.
We'll discuss specific strategies for setting boundaries,
Oh.
disengaging from these toxic interactions, and building a support network to kind of counter the isolating effects of flying monkeys.
Sounds like we've got a lot more to unpack.
We do.
Looking forward to it.
You too.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We just finished talking about how tricky it can be for people on the spectrum to navigate the whole flying monkey situation.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge.
Now I'm really interested in figuring out what we can actually do about it.
Yeah.
You know, what are some practical steps to protect ourselves?
Well, that's a great question. And it's important to remember that even though this dynamic can be incredibly challenging,
Uh-huh.
there are absolutely things you can do to take back your power.
Okay, good. I like to hear that.
One of the most important is setting clear boundaries.
Okay. Boundaries. I've heard that word thrown around a lot.
Right.
But it can feel kind of abstract.
Yeah.
What does setting boundaries actually look like in the context of flying monkeys?
It starts with recognizing your own needs and limits.
Okay.
What are you comfortable with, and what are your absolute no-go zones?
Uh-huh.
Once you have a sense of those boundaries,
Okay.
it's about communicating them clearly and firmly to the people involved.
So it's not just about like having these boundaries in your head. It's about actually voicing them.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be confrontational.
Okay, good.
It can be as simple as saying, I'm not comfortable discussing this topic.
Right.
Or please don't talk about me to other people.
Okay, that makes sense. But what if the flying monkey is someone you can't easily avoid,
Right.
like a family member or a coworker?
That's where things can get really tricky.
Yeah.
But even in those situations,
Okay.
you still have the right to set boundaries.
Okay.
It might involve limiting contact,
Sure.
only engaging in conversations on neutral topics,
Mm.
or even having a trusted third party present during interactions.
So it's like creating a buffer zone to protect yourself from their negativity?
Precisely. And remember, setting boundaries is an ongoing process.
Right.
You might need to reinforce them repeatedly,
Okay.
especially with people who are used to getting their way.
It's like training a puppy.
Yeah,
It takes time and consistency.
that's a great analogy. And sometimes even with the best boundaries in place,
Yeah.
flying monkeys might still try to push those limits.
Oh, for sure.
In those cases, it's important to have strategies for disengaging
Yeah.
from those toxic interactions.
Okay, so let's talk about disengagement.
Okay.
What are some techniques that could be particularly helpful for someone on the autism spectrum who might find it difficult to navigate those emotionally charged situations?
One technique that can be really effective is called gray rocking.
Gray rocking.
Yeah, have you ever heard of that?
I haven't. What does that entail?
Essentially, it's about becoming emotionally unresponsive to the flying monkey's attempts to provoke you.
Okay.
Imagine you're a smooth gray rock.
Okay.
Nothing sticks to you,
Uh-huh.
and you don't give them any emotional reaction to feed off of.
So it's like you're taking all the wind out of their sails.
Yes.
They're trying to get a rise out of you.
Right.
But you're just not giving them anything.
Exactly. Don't engage in arguments.
Okay.
Don't defend yourself.
Uh-huh.
Just remain neutral and detached.
Okay.
It might feel unnatural at first,
I can imagine.
but it can be surprisingly effective.
I can see how that would be particularly helpful for someone who might get overwhelmed by intense emotions
Absolute.
or find it difficult to articulate their feelings in the heat of the moment.
Yes. And it also prevents you from saying something you might regret later.
Oh, that's a good point.
Another helpful technique is redirection.
Redirection.
If the flying monkey is trying to bait you into a conflict
Okay.
or gossip about someone, try steering the conversation towards a neutral topic.
So instead of getting sucked into their drama,
Right.
you're gently changing the course of the conversation.
Precisely. Talk about the weather,
Uh,
a book you're reading,
uh-huh.
anything that shifts the focus away from their negativity.
And if that doesn't work?
And if that doesn't work, you can always politely excuse yourself from the conversation.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, just say, oh, I've got to go do this.
Get out of there.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see a pattern here.
What's that?
Boundaries, gray, rocking redirection.
Uh-huh.
And if all else fails, a strategic exit.
Exactly.
It's like having a toolkit for dealing with these challenging interactions.
That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
And having these tools in your arsenal can help you feel more empowered and in control,
Right.
even when faced with difficult people.
So it's not about becoming a master manipulator yourself.
Yeah.
It's about having strategies to protect yourself from manipulation.
Exactly. It's about reclaiming your power and agency in those situations.
That's a great point. But it's also important to remember that you don't have to go through this alone. Right?
Absolutely not.
Building a strong support network is absolutely crucial for navigating these challenges.
100%.
Support networks. Let's dive into that a bit more.
Okay.
What kind of support are we talking about here?
It could be family members,
Okay.
friends, therapists, or even online communities.
Okay.
The key is to surround yourself with people who understand what you're going through and can offer validation and encouragement.
It's like having a safe space where you can decompress,
Yes,
process your emotions, and gain perspective.
precisely. And within these support networks,
Yeah.
you can also find people who have experienced similar situations
Right.
and can offer practical advice
Okay.
or even just a listening ear.
Shared experiences can be so validating,
They are.
especially when you're dealing with something as complex and emotionally draining as narcissistic manipulation.
Absolutely. And these supportive relationships can help counter the isolating effects of flying monkeys, reminding you that you're not alone
Right.
and that your experiences are valid.
So we've talked about setting boundaries, disengaging from toxic interactions, and building support networks.
Those are great first steps.
Are there any other resources or strategies that you think could be helpful for our listener?
One thing we haven't touched on yet is the importance of self-care.
Self-care.
When you're dealing with the emotional fallout of narcissistic manipulation,
Right.
it's easy to neglect your own needs.
That's so true. It's like you're constantly putting out fires
Yeah.
and you forget to take care of yourself in the process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So make sure you're prioritizing activities that bring you joy
Okay.
and help you recharge.
Like what?
Whether it's spending time in nature,
Okay.
listening to music,
Uh-huh.
engaging in a hobby, or even just taking a long bath.
Yeah.
Make time for yourself.
It's about replenishing your energy reserves so you can better face these challenges.
You got it. And remember, self-care is not selfish.
Right.
It's essential for maintaining your mental and emotional well-being,
Okay.
especially when you're navigating challenging situations.
That's such a powerful message. It's not about indulging in luxury.
Right.
It's about prioritizing your own needs so you can show up as your best self in all areas of your life.
Absolutely. And speaking of showing up as your best self,
Yeah.
let's shift gears a bit and talk about the incredible strengths that autistic individuals bring to the table.
Yes. Let's talk about the positives.
Okay?
Because it's so easy to get caught up in the negativity of these situations
Is.
and forget about our own inherent worth and resilience.
You're so right. Autistic individuals are known for their honesty,
Mm-hmm.
their loyalty,
Right.
and a unique way of seeing the world,
Okay.
but often have a very deep sense of justice and fairness,
Right.
which can be incredibly valuable when navigating the complexities of social dynamics.
It's like they have this built-in moral compass that helps them discern right from wrong,
Right.
even when others might be swayed by manipulation.
Exactly. And their ability to think outside the box
Yeah.
and see things from different perspectives can be incredibly helpful
Okay.
for finding creative solutions to problems.
So it's not just about coping with these challenges.
Right.
It's about using their unique strengths to thrive in spite of them.
Precisely. And that leads us to a crucial question.
Okay, what's that?
How can someone on the autism spectrum harness those strengths to counter the effects of flying monkeys
Right.
and build a life that celebrates their neurodiversity?
That's a great question. And I think it's the perfect segue into the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We've explored the challenges,
Yes.
discussed practical strategies,
Yeah.
and now it's time to focus on empowerment
Yes.
and creating a fulfilling life on your own terms.
I'm excited to dive into that with you.
Me too. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been talking about how flying monkeys operate, in the context of narcissistic relationships and how these dynamics can be especially challenging for people on the autism spectrum.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think it's important to remember that it's not all doom and gloom, right?
Absolutely not.
In this final part, I'm really looking forward to talking about how to move forward from this with a sense of empowerment.
Yes, I think that's really important.
So where do we go from here? Like, what are some practical steps our listener can take to move forward, with a sense of agency and actually create a more positive and fulfilling life for themselves?
Well, one of the most important things is to really cultivate self-validation.
Self-validation.
It's so easy to start doubting yourself.
Right.
When you're constantly being bombarded with negativity from flying monkeys or the narcissists themselves.
Right, especially for someone on the autism spectrum.
Exactly.
Who might already be grappling with, feelings of self-doubt or social anxiety.
Right.
Those external attacks can really amplify those internal struggles.
Absolutely. That's why it's so crucial to practice self-compassion and remind yourself that you are worthy of love and respect.
Okay.
Regardless of what others might say or do.
Yeah.
Your value is inherent. It's not contingent on external validation.
It's like you're building an inner fortress
Yeah,
of self-love and acceptance that can withstand those external storms.
exactly.
But how do you actually do that? It sounds great in theory, but it can feel really difficult in practice.
Oh, it takes practice for sure. One really powerful way to cultivate self-validation is to just focus on your strengths.
Okay, strengths.
What are you good at? What makes you unique? What brings you joy?
Yeah, I love that. It's about shifting the focus away from those external voices
Right.
and tuning into your own internal compass.
Yes,
What makes you feel good, what makes you feel proud.
precisely. And as you start to recognize and appreciate your own strength,
Uh-huh.
it becomes easier and easier to just brush off those negative comments or actions from others. Their opinions hold less weight because you have this really strong sense of your own worth.
It's like you're building this internal shield
Yes,
that deflects those toxic arrows.
exactly.
They might still be coming at you, but they just can't penetrate your armor of self-love and acceptance.
That's a great analogy. And another really important piece of this puzzle is finding your tribe.
Okay, your tribe.
Surrounding yourself with people who genuinely support and appreciate you for who you are.
That sounds amazing, but I imagine it can be hard to find those people.
It can be.
Especially when you've been burned by toxic relationships in the past.
Right.
Like, where do you even start?
It can definitely be a journey, and it might take some trial and error.
Okay.
But there are so many amazing communities out there, both online and offline, that are specifically geared towards supporting autistic individuals
Okay.
and those who've experienced narcissistic abuse.
Oh, that's good to know. Can you give me some examples of those communities?
Sure, there are online forums, social media groups, and even in-person meetups where people can connect with others who really understand their experiences.
Oh, wow.
These spaces can offer a sense of belonging,
Okay.
validation, and practical advice for navigating these challenges.
It's like finding your own little corner of the internet.
Yes.
Or your local community where you can finally let your guard down and be your authentic self without fear of judgment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in these spaces, you can not only share your struggles, but you can also celebrate your victories,
Okay.
big or small.
I like that.
It's about finding people who get it,
Yeah.
who can empathize with your unique experiences.
Right.
And cheer you on as you navigate this journey of self-discovery and healing.
It sounds incredibly powerful. It's like having a cheerleading squad for your life.
Yes.
People who are there to support you through thick and thin.
Exactly. And sometimes those external sources of support
Uh-huh.
can be the lifeline that you need to
Yeah.
pull yourself out of a dark place.
I can see that.
Yeah.
So we've talked about self-validation, finding your tribe, focusing on your strengths.
Those are great starting points.
Are there any other resources or pieces of advice that you'd like to share with our listener before we wrap up?
I think it's also important to remember that seeking professional help can be incredibly valuable in these situations.
Yeah, therapy.
Yeah, a therapist who specializes in autism or narcissistic abuse can provide personalized guidance,
Okay.
help you develop coping mechanisms,
Uh-huh.
and support you as you process the emotional fallout of these experiences.
Therapy can be such a powerful tool for healing and growth.
They can.
It's a safe space where you can unpack those complex emotions, gain clarity, and develop strategies for moving forward in a healthier way.
Exactly. And it's not a sign of weakness to seek help.
Right.
It takes courage to acknowledge that you need support and to reach out for professional guidance.
Yeah, I love that. It's about recognizing that we don't have to go through these things alone. You know, there are people who have dedicated their lives to helping others navigate these challenges, and there's absolutely no shame in seeking their expertise.
Absolutely. And remember, knowledge is power.
Okay.
The more you understand about autism, about narcissism, and the dynamics of manipulation,
Yeah.
the better equipped you'll be to protect yourself and advocate for your needs.
So it's about becoming your own expert,
Yes.
educating yourself,
Right.
learning to identify those red flags so you can navigate those situations with more confidence and clarity.
You got it. And as we wrap up this deep dive,
Mhm.
I just want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay, I'm listening.
While it's important to be aware of the challenges and the potential dangers,
Uh-huh.
it's equally important to focus on the positive.
Okay.
You're not defined by your experiences with narcissists or flying monkeys.
Right.
You are a unique and valuable individual with so much to offer the world.
That's such a beautiful and empowering message.
Thank you.
It's about reclaiming your narrative and focusing on the things that bring you joy, fulfillment, and a sense of purpose.
Exactly. And remember, you are not alone.
Right.
There are people who care resources to support you
Yeah.
and a whole community that's rooting for you.
Wonderful. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into flying monkeys.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey of exploration and discovery.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've gained some valuable insights and that you feel empowered to navigate these challenging dynamics with confidence and grace.
Absolutely.
And remember, keep shining your light.
Always.
Take care.